Hi everyone, my name is Yoonshin Park and I'm the juror and curator of this Women Made Galleries exhibition Process and Material, which opens Friday, August 7th. The Process and Material exhibition was planned to highlight artists' innovative applications in making process and unique approach to their chosen materials. The exhibition also cultivates the communication between the artist's creative practice and their experimentation with the materials limit. You can learn more about the Process and Material exhibition on the Woman Made Gallery's website. I'm hosting a series of conversations with some participating artists in the exhibition. Donna Zarbin-Byrne is my next guest. Thank you for joining me, Donna.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks. So your piece, Banana Bloom, is now on display in the gallery space as one of the slideshow images. Seeing your work on screen would be nothing like seeing the actual work in the gallery in person, but it's nice to have this face-to-face conversation with you about your artwork.
Thank you.
Let me pull out the image of your work so that people have a better idea. Here they are. So the Banana Bloom is a sculpture piece with so many components: paper, encaustic, dried banana stalk and flour, soldered brass, and other mixed media. It's 24 inches tall and maybe 16 inches width, I guess.
16 inches, like it comes off of the
the wall?
wall.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the depth from the wall, it kind of floats out.
Good to know. And because the work has so many different types of materials, I wanted to know about your approach to the final stage of the product first. How much of a making process was planned and what part were like a spontaneous? And I'm also wondering whether those kind of approaches pretty common for your practice?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I work on a piece like this one that has so many different processes, it usually starts with just an idea of a form, and I'll start sketching. And this one in particular was influenced by the way when a banana stalk is coming off of the tree, it just kind of like floats, and it's got this bloom on the bottom. And so first I was just thinking about the way I love the way the form projected out in space. And so I collect all kinds of detritus and plant materials, and I dry them in my studio. And when the stalk dried sufficiently, I just started fooling around with different materials and holding the physical piece up against the wall. So the concept and the form and the materials all kind of remained fluid. So when I knew from the drawing that I wanted to create this kind of wings or blossom around the bloom on the bottom, then that was very planned, because I took brass wire and soldered it and built the form. And so it's kind of a combination of a movement between an idea and then what my materials will do. And often I'll have a concept, but then the materials will do something interesting. And so the process remains very fluid. I work with a lot of encaustic and handmade paper. And so the top part is paper that is folded and gold leafed and with encaustic. And then the stem, the dried stem, is painted with encaustic and gold leaf. I seem to, even though I collect and use all these natural forms, I seem to want to take them a step further and not just leave them exactly in their natural state. For example, the banana stem, when it's dried like that, I mean, it starts out like 3 times as wide, and when it dries, it really reminds me of vertebrae. And so I wanted to accent all those little parts that protrude like vertebrae. And so that's why I draw and paint on the natural pieces and gold leafed it. So I like the idea of it being kind of like poetry that can allude to different meanings, that it sort of looks like a spinal cord, sort of looks like a plant. And yeah, this is kind of typical of a lot of the approach that I use with a lot of my work.
That remind me of reading your from your statements. You kind of quoted a gardener of the dreamscape, and I guess all your work kind of contains some level of this very imaginary creature, and all influenced by the nature. Yes, that kind of sense, right?
Yeah, so I love to garden. I love the forms that come out of my garden, and I live part of the year in Hawaii, and so I'm just constantly astounded by plant forms and how magical they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so my practice is just over the years has developed into not leaving them as they are from nature, but combining them, assembling them with different parts to create kind of like new forms out of forms that initially surprised me or delighted me, like this banana stalk that hangs from the tree when the banana plant is forming, and it's got this beautiful bloom on the bottom. So I just kept the bloom and heightened the colors with paint, and then dipped it in wax to preserve it. So yeah, it's this kind of synthesis of jumping off from what I love that I see in the natural world to what I dream up.
And also this like a changing environment, by reflecting how you're surrounded by different type of natural like environment could be one factor that you
Absolutely.
could. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Chicago and have spent a lot of time in Texas and Hawaii, and my colors started getting really way more intense, especially in Texas, because it's so hot and the sun is so bright that there's just the light, creates a different kind of response than in Chicago where things are so gray.
It's very interesting. And you mentioned in your statement that as a mixed media artist, you explore diverse mediums that push your imagination to open up new possibilities. And I'm guessing that like because you try to kind of experiment, different ways to explore, oftentimes you will face like a challenges like
Oh,
and especially you are traveling quite often, right?
well,
Not these days, I bet, but
days, but you're exactly right. I mean, sometimes I think it'd be kinder to myself to just let things be. I feel like I'm the jack of all trade and master of nothing. But so I work with a lot of paper, but as I'm working thinner and thinner, I'm starting to go into fabric. And this lockdown, I did a Zoom workshop that I worked with some flax fibers in a whole brand new way, and I'm applying it very similar way, like using it as a a shell
Mhm.
around metal forms that I build, but the qualities and the strength that I'm getting with the flax are just unbelievable. And I can collage uh, paper within two parts of it, and it's still translucent.
Mhm.
And I mean, this all kind of came out of the desire to see, well, what other materials can I push the limitations more of, you know, the fragility of the paper? I mean, some Japanese papers I'm still experimenting with because they're really, really intrinsically strong.
Mhm.
But in my quest for more strength and more translucency, the more translucent the paper became, the more fragile. So that kind of led me to, I've been working with experiments with silk and haven't really been happy with the results. And then I discovered this new new process during the lockdown. I don't think that I would have ever taken this Zoom class because it probably wouldn't have existed. So yes, exactly. A lot of times um, I'm doing exactly that, experimenting more to push an idea forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what's next? Do you have any exhibitions or other project exciting waiting for you after this?
Thank you for asking. I am in September, I'm in a group show on the Big Island in Hawaii. And the show is called Kipai Pai Fellows. And Kipai Pai in Hawaiian means to inspire. And it's curated with a group of artists. And we're really excited because we think that it's going to be um, not only virtual.
Mhm.
Um, Sort of the benefit of what's happened to all of us is that now if the exhibit can be seen publicly, we also have the advantage of more attention being paid to Zoom, you know, and so many more people that really are not just on the little islands in the middle of nowhere on Hawaii will have the opportunity to see the show.
Exactly the way what we, the way we do this talk.
Exactly. So,
Okay, thank you again for your time, Donna, and I really enjoyed our conversation and our best wishes in your upcoming shows.
thank you. And I enjoyed it too. Thank you for having me.